Now we sit.
Okay, so the students started off talking about and this was polished, year in tech recap. So, that OpenAI released GPT-4 in April, and that Elon picked up Twitter then. And so they just kind of went on through the year, talked about some of the different things that had happened, set the tone for the day. And then the keynote was Rod Zemmel. And Rod is a senior partner, global leader for McKinsey Digital. He's the guy that wrote this book it's called Rewired. He's one of the three authors of it. I'd suggest getting the book because it's got a lot of data in it. Started off with this one showing a lot of investment and interest and what's happened. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. One of the things he pointed out of this as an important item is down here on the lower left corner is generative AI and the interest score and how that's moved. But there's a long way to go with that. We're not hearing much about Web3, though that was pretty big last year. And then as generative AI took off, everything died down on Web3, and we moved into more of generative AI. These are all charts that came out of the book, by the way. So if you write a book, then apparently you end up with some good charts. He pointed out that we have had analytical AI around for a long time, comparably a long time, and that has naturally evolved into generative AI. However, it's still in use and it's going strong. Workforce performance. 80% of the workforce can have at least 10% of their tasks impacted by Gen AI. 50% of the tasks can be performed faster with the same level of quality using Gen AI. And then 35 to 70% of incremental economic impact globally from a knowledge worker enabled by Gen AI. Now this one was very important, and we spent quite a bit of time on it. But these are the four main categories that Gen AI is impacting customer over the next year. Doing customer engagement, customer service through chatbots, calling agents, that can take over quite a bit. We moved a lot of call centers overseas just to save money. But now with chatbots coming in, they can save even more money and cut out some of the overseas contacts. Being able to have large amounts of information, making research reports and pitch decks, having some kind of a virtual expert. Coding, which is my area, accelerated engineering productivity by more than 50% by interpreting and generating quality code. And we have seen that. It's impacted a lot of things. And then the fourth category would be creative content, which is what a lot of people use theirs for. And there's the book. And companies need to rewire themselves so that they can adopt and scale the AI and be able to change their roadmap. And this one turned out blurry, but there it is. Digital and AI age, business and technology will not be thought of as separate domains for long. We went on with that for quite a while. Other people, Kareem Lakami, he talked to MemoryX, which is a new chip company, and they're building a neural processor. It's a very small company. Ampere and what they were doing, and then Intel. Intel made a big point about talking about all of their AI software that they have and things for building large models. and supplementing their chips. These are the sessions that I went to, by the way. So we talked about opportunities and risks. We had two people from Google and one of the Microsoft corporate vice presidents. And they were all talking about security risks and things that you would find. And I'm breezing through this. We had Adam Selipsky from Amazon Web Services, and he talked about a good deal about security and providing a secure environment, being able to scale AI services and what they're doing for this. And this place was full to the rafters, by the way. People were sitting all the way up in the top deck. Then we had some AI pioneers. Dmitry Shelnikov came from Perplexity. They were one of the sponsors, and they gave everyone a free 6 months use of Perplexity. I know Paul had talked about Perplexity the other day, had some kind of a discussion about it.
Yeah, I was
And
very
then,
like, were you the one that told me they have 45 employees?
yes,
Yeah,
yes, they have 45 employees, and they're going up against Google and OpenAI and Microsoft. I think they had a very novel approach to how to build models, and I believe they're funded by Reid Hoffman and Bill Gates and some of these other people. So I'm impressed. I was impressed with this guy. He's one of the founders. I look forward to learning a little bit more about Perplexity. I quite frankly, I never really paid too much attention to them. Mile Ott from Character AI. They've got kind of a novelty LLM use, which is to be able to create a character as a model using RAG, and then be able to talk to it. It's interesting. I've used it a few times just to see what it was like. It's very entertaining. And then Rob May, he's one of the local people. He's been around quite a while. He started a new company called Brand Guard, which their approach is that they're building an LLM and everything, so you can input all of the rules. You've got brand governance rules. You can input those into this system, and it will watch for things that are against your brand. It'll watch for people writing things or using your brand. So if you had Nike that was used and they called them felony shoes or something, and they started putting them out on the web that way, it would alert you for this. If somebody used it in an ad, and it was not something that they had brand guidelines to be able to use, then this AI would alert you to it. So I thought that was very interesting. Emad Mustak, he's Stability AI. He talked about how they got started and some of the things that they were looking into. And then finally, it was Thomas Domke. He was CEO of GitHub, who I've met several times before. And he talked about coming in as the CEO after Nate Friedman had left, and about having a company that was a Microsoft company, but that had a separate brand identity and that they ran separately. So quite a bit of good information there.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Michael, what's the biggest thing that surprised you?
45 people at Perplexity. But I made some good connections and everything. If you look on my LinkedIn, I've got a little bit more information, and I've posted some other pictures. And then some of the other people that were there. But this was a well-polished, even though it was student-run and organized, it's very well-polished, and I was impressed with the caliber of people that were there. There were a lot of people that were our age that came, and I was very surprised. I was kind of expecting some some kids, a little bit more of them, but it's a very enjoyable conference.
That's great. Well, Michael, thanks for the update, and sharing. Does anybody have any questions for Michael? Any feedback? Great. Well, thank you, Michael.
I want to
You're
add
welcome.
I want to add some information on Perplexity. There's a guy named Shelley Palmer who is a media tech guy in New York City, very well versed and connected. And he just did a little expose on why he chose Perplexity over everything else to build what he's building. And I think it might inspire a lot of us. So I'll send that out to you, Paul.
That'd be great, David. And I've become a real Perplexity fan personally. I last week had about 4 or 5 hours of industry research trying to find top issues and went down the traditional Google. And I'd take a question and go Google, ChatGPT, and Perplexity. And after about an hour and a half, Perplexity by far, at least for the research I was doing to kind of get me centered, was really, really effective. I think he's going to carve, if as long as he doesn't get too wide, I think he's going to carve out that use case. And really, because Google's got to go wide. But anyway, I became a real big fan. Great. So thanks everyone. So we have the next two things. We've got a showcase that's kind of a main topic. Tonight is actually going to be on Gen AI training for sales reps. I want to run through some of the things we're doing there. And then I want to leave 20 minutes for open mic where anybody can ask for the mic, share what they're seeing, ask questions, do a demo. It's a part of the program we've been getting squeezed out because we had so many compelling, exciting showcases, but I want to pull it in a little bit here. So let me share my screen. And one of the reasons I want to do this is that we have been doing a lot of sales training, excuse me, a lot of Gen AI training for different companies. And most of it, almost all of it has been general. So it's general Gen AI, 40 to 80 employees from a company that we kind of teach them the basics. They're from all different departments. I continue to be surprised at how many, the variety. So almost consistently find a third of the people who showed up have never used ChatGPT at all, but they heard about it. Another third have used it less than 1 or 2 hours, but want to learn more. And then the last third have used it a little more, and then more of my power users here. But they're data scientists, software engineers, marketers, all different parts of the organization here, and really taught me that in this kind of early adopter curve feels like human nature, and it falls in different parts of it's a similar, maybe it's similar, but somewhat similar, but the bell curve in each of the different departments. But one of the things keep coming at is people take this and they come back and then immediately, understandably, want to see more for their specific function. What does Gen AI mean for product managers? We've done a few of those. What does Gen AI mean for software developers who aren't yet on it? What does Gen AI mean for sales? And sales is one that we are getting pulled into a lot. And the more I see it, the more I really think there's a strong ROI for companies to look at. A lot of the companies tell us that, they struggle with thinking about how do we upskill 7,000 or 30,000 employees? And the thing I'm realizing, no one has that as a budget item, a KPI, or key. There's a whole bunch of people on compliance. There's people who get fired if we don't have a sufficient compliance training or sexual harassment training organization for insurance reasons and others. But on the upside, there's a lot of L&D groups, but in general, no one really owns that. And the things that we're seeing in companies that even want to roll that out, they actually don't know who to point that to, who to give that to. So I actually think it's a natural progression. One natural progression may be moving to more of these department level specific things. The second thing is we're getting a lot more companies saying, boy, I have $100, $500,000, $1 million. What's the best ROI in that? Should I spend $100,000 in general employee productivity? Or should I take that same $100,000 and really focus it on 1 or 2 departments? Or should I not even do employee training? And should I just focus it on customer service? So, how do we get the biggest bang for the buck? And I'm starting to see a real big payoff in sales. And what I want to walk through here, this is a 90-minute presentation. It's very hands-on. I just want to go through initial part of it that shows you some of the prompts, get some feedback, and I'm sure others in the audience have actually had a lot better prompts than even the ones we're using. These are some of the use cases. So very typical for sales, prospecting, lead generator, competitive analysis, refinement. We're really focusing on outside and inside reps, so people who have 30 to 50% of their revenue. There's 8 or 10 different sales methodologies out there, and being able to use this within a sales methodology is really useful. You'll see a couple examples coming up, being able to take a value proposition and articulate it in a way for a prospect who's very visionary, and take that same value proposition and articulate in a way for someone's very implementation oriented. So very quickly taking your sales proposition and match the psychological and data preference for the prospect is one that we're seeing. We go through proficiency, power tools. We continue to find this is a very useful analogy. It's probably a broken record here, but you never hire, if you hire a carpenter to redo your kitchen, you came home and the carpenter's manually putting drills and putting up the cupboard. You're like, what are you doing? And we want to make that same analogy now. If you walk around your company or organization, you see people doing wins work, words, images, numbers, or sounds, and they're not using Gen AI. It's equivalent in our view of not using that. So that kind of metaphor is useful, we're finding. We find that a lot of people are confused on all the different types. So we break it down to, Gen AI that goes in a product that you sell, Gen AI that improves a business process, it's multiple people, and then Gen AI that really increases productivity. I used to go through and try to get people to understand everything. What I've really realized is that we've all realized is the key thing is to have each person in that training group understand and get excited about one killer app for themselves. This is change management. And how do we not make this class just a drive-by interesting class, but actually a step towards fundamentally changing our individual workflows and productivity here. And that starts with a case that you really talk about. We ask companies what their employees share. The third they've used it before and have great case studies to share. And then what we like to do is kind of walk through different types of Gen AI, 11 different types of Gen AI. Everyone loves this chart. Narrow versus horizontal. This is something we've learned over time. It's really important to have the basics understood between deterministic and probabilistic, and to get this centered up front in people's mind, because it's something that we see execs fumbling over all the times because we haven't set this expectation up front. And expect probabilistic software to act like deterministic is naive, and I will argue wasting time. And I think it's not the tool. These are different tools. So if you have unstructured and structured data and you're answering medical benefit questions or writing an essay, probabilistic Gen AI tools are fabulous for that. If you're doing financial accounting and reporting accounting, you need 100% explainability, 100% data source that are structured rows and columns data here, and 100% same output for the same input, then you want to be deterministic here and trying to go back and forth. And a lot of the frustrations we see with people who, this tool doesn't work for my job, or this ChatGPT is junk, is because their expectation, in our view, is thinking deterministic about that and not probabilistic about that. And then I go my whole rant that I think hallucination is a wrong word and should be probabilistic outcome, and everyone is very polite and listens to me, and then we go back to the class. We talk about how we really break it down. What is OpenAI? What exactly it is? I think the thing that's important here is really give people the basics here, and I really continue to use. We use, it's 1,000 interns at your fingertips, and it's like every sales rep having their own thought partner, their own researcher, their own graphic artist, their own brainstormer with them all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that can really help unplug thinking and move sales cycles forward here. And then from that, we we do jump right on the keyboard. So let me jump on the keyboard. And what we like to do is then walk through, a case study, and we're back and forth in different case studies. This particular case study, you are an outside sales executive selling consulting for $500,000 for medium, large size companies for AI projects. You have some support, but not a lot, and deals count, and therefore productivity and closing counts. And then we walk through prompts, and and usually I just cut and paste just to save time. I'm not doing that, but here's an example of, what are the top 5 business challenges for an SVP? So oftentimes sales executives need to talk about pain language. And when you're walking in different titles in different industries, they are different. And if you haven't really sold into insurance companies before, and you have a meeting with an SVP of AI, here's 5 challenges. Again, these are what our interns are coming up with, so you got to have at least a human in the loop, but it's something to start getting forward. Have you thought about the regulatory compliance and ethical considerations? Have you thought about the talent needs of your particular prospect? You know, and these are in general, and then you can, if you're selling technology, you can actually get, you know, more specific. You know, what are the top business challenges related to technology for this SVP of AI? Many times, certainly what I've seen, the sales reps go in with their product. They know what the product solves. But oftentimes, if you can start with the full universe of the customer problem set and then pull back or get your problem identification within theirs, and this is one good way to start thinking. It's also really good for product marketing and sales support people to start building some of those industry charts that have pains by title. MEDDIC is a sales methodology that there's one of the many out there, and it's great for creating that. So you're an expert in sales strategy. MEDDIC is a sales methodology. Create a list of questions for an SVP at AI at a Fortune 500 insurance company here. And for people who have created this, may take you, you know, 30 minutes, an hour and a half, if you don't know the industry. And boom, now you've got a starter kit showing you at least what the robots are thinking as a starting point on KPIs, asking who the economic buyer is, who's signing it, what the decision criteria is, what the process is, you know, thinking through the pain and the champion. So just a good way to kind of put some more of that methodology that's customer specific, industry specific, or title specific into that sales cycle. Spin consulting, spin selling is another one. This one is I think I forget what spin stands for. Situation. Oh yes, right. Situation, problem, identification, implication, and need. And again, what's a spin selling analysis for 500,000 consulting services sold for Gen AI strategy and project prioritization for a large insurance company? And this is walking through, triggering some things, being more comprehensive for that sales rep, maybe jiggling some ideas and how to actually have a much more effective conversation in person, online, or digitally. Just do a few other examples. I think most people have seen tables and competitive analysis here. If you haven't, I'll do it quickly. You know, who are the leading consulting companies helping SVPs of AI with strategy and project implementation in the United States here? You know, and if you haven't seen it, and Perplexity will probably do a better job even on this, it'll come back and, you know, at least name what it thinks are the biggest competitors. And if you haven't used it, tables are fabulous in this tool. So, you know, show results in a table. And as we've talked, and I'll show the results from the above or in the table here, but we've talked again and again, is that we want to not underestimate the cognitive ability of our robots, push our interns to do more. So let's add a column for biggest competitive differentiation. Something that's more than just searching on the internet. So we want our robots to actually look at this and come back with a point of view. Actually, this is something that doesn't pop up. People are starting to show, this is a new feature that Custom GPT is doing. They're actually showing multiple. But here on the left, I'll just keep it left and simple here. You got, you know, McKinsey, biggest competitive differentiation, how it differentiates from Bain. Yeah, RJ, thanks for raising your hand. Go ahead, RJ.
Yeah, I was going to ask. So you just said earlier, a few sentences ago, that you wanted to get the people to understand the cognitive capabilities of these LLMs. But what I'm wondering is, do you ever let them listen to the LLMs and then have a conversation with them by putting it into the audio mode? Because the reason I say that is the more and more I use pi.ai, I am just blown away by how it's able to carry on a rational, complicated discussion and give really good answers to very specific, important, pertinent questions that I'm involved with. So I just was going to bring that up as, if you haven't tried it yet, I think that will convince your audience perhaps a lot more than just showing an LLM spitting out information in text form.
It's a great point, Roger. Roger, we haven't done that because it's mostly beginners, and that would involve anyway, sometimes downloading the app. But I totally agree, it is very powerful. And people haven't done it, at least the way I did. Roger, tell me if you. I download the app and use it on my phone, where I actually use voice in, hear voice out, and really is. It does very much feel like conversational, particularly if you're driving, and it's almost like a person next to you. So that's so competitive analysis. That's we'll do a few more here, showing a table. Oh, this is another one that's important. A lot of times, at least certainly junior reps will walk into and not think enough about who is in that room. And here's a great way to get value proposition by title. So your enterprise rep selling a $500,000 strategy project, list the value proposition or selling proposition of this project for each of these roles. And again, this is a little longer, and the more specific you can be in your prompts, the better it's going to be. So put more specific, don't put confidential information, but put more specific things about what you're trying to convey. In terms of very friendly, certainly. And starts walking through. Here's key messages for the CEO. Maybe they're on the right. The CFO, maybe he's down the end of the table here. Don't strategic advantages, look at the CEO. Cost savings, look at the CFO. Digital and everything else. And I found this really also helps when you're going particularly larger deals, thinking through, have we thought through all these objections? What's the biggest objection the security officer is going to have? What's the biggest objection the CTO is going to have? And how can we overcome that? Just a few more minutes. Prospect, I just go shoot two more. Prospecting, let's do follow-up. Custom, we've seen a lot more emails here, but here's one is using humor to get conversations started here. So if you create a compelling subject line for SVP of AI on your value proposition, let's say you send this out, and 2-3 days later they haven't followed up on, what do you do? Do you just keep sending the same thing? Are you there? Are you there? One potential approach is to use a follow-up email with humor in it. And ChatGPT and these tools are fantastic for humor. Create a short follow-up email to this email above that includes humor in the subject line. Let's make AI strategy less artificial. Maybe that's a little cheesy, but you kind of get a sense for it. One of the training things we had for one of the large companies, the person who attended was a SOX compliance officer. And his biggest problem was he has to send all these data requests to people for SOX compliance, and like nobody ever replies. And we said, well, let's use some humor for that. And we came up with 10 or 15 very creative subject lines that he really thought would kind of break the ice, stand out in someone's inbox. And at least unplug some of the sludge in some of these sales cycles here. And the last one is I want to show you is presenting by kind of psychological personality type here. So this is an example of describe the approach of a $500,000 AI consulting project for strategy and project prioritization to an executive who's visionary and likes to understand the big picture first. And this could be an outline of an email or an outline of your a PowerPoint presentation. So it talks about strategy, capability assessment, and it kind of tumbles down to the prioritization here. You may have a meeting later in the week or the day with the exact same project, but now you're talking to a very different executive. Now you're talking to an executive or a decision maker who is very concerned, who's very implementation oriented and likes detailed plans and risk. It's the same project. It's the same product. The exact same thing is going to be delivered here. You're just using the robots to articulate the value proposition differently. And we saw the CEO one earlier. And this one's a little more detailed. It's really interesting. I did this one earlier today. It actually came out with a grid. So it shows some of the probabilistic stuff here. But here it's talking about, assessment, project prioritization, risk assessment, implementation plans. So it's already jumping down 2 or 3 levels. So you could see taking the uniqueness of what you're doing and using the robots to articulate in a way that makes sense. Maybe they like metaphors. Creating metaphors for your sales things is one thing we can do. I won't have time today. Another one is thinking through images for people who aren't autistic. One of the things that these things are is we all know a picture is 1,000 words. Well, what's the right picture for your proposal? Well, first ask the robots that, and then ask the robots to start drawing it for DALL-E 3 for people pay $20 a month, and every rep should be doing that because it's such a productivity standard. You can start getting 4 or 5 images of showing what transformation looks like at a insurance company. So that's what we've been going through and working in the lab here. Any other questions or comments or improvement suggestions?
Make a quick comment.
Go ahead, David, then we'll go to RJ.
Just a quick comment. I'm talking, my thing is sales, right? I'm helping salespeople all the time. And just like you're talking to people who have had experience and people who don't have experience. I think most of the people that I'm talking to now end up not having experience. They say they do. They did a couple tests. My point is we could, just like your vegetable comment, right? We could think about ways that really break things down. Like one of the favorite things I say is, you will not be replaced by a robot. You will be replaced by a competitor that knows how to dance with the robots, right? So I don't want to get cute, but I'm saying those kinds of things change the mood. And another one is, think of these, I think this is the 1,000 intern thing, right? 1,000 intern, but think of this intern as someone who is really smart, completely tireless with your question, answering again and again and again. I mean, they're just so patient, but they can also be wrong. And all of a sudden, now you have this vibe where or sometimes I say, and they're a little bit drunk, or something like that, just to kind of, again, take the pressure off. But I thought I'd share a little bit of that kind of higher level thinking that gets people warmed up and they lean in and they realize that they can ask as many stupid questions and no one has to know. And the robots aren't going to think they're stupid. And that really changes people's kind of feeling that they can actually use it for whatever they need it for.
No, I think it's the thing I've certainly learned is getting an environment that they feel safe to ask stupid questions. So I usually ask the exec to come in early to ask a basic question up front. And then if they aren't doing, I just stop and I'll ask a question and just leave it silent. And next thing you know, the hands start going up. So it really is really important. And I think a lot of it is people on this call, we're miles ahead of everyone else, and I think a lot of the industry or people coming on are kind of just where they're learning back in March or February last year. But let's go to RJ and then Donovan.
Yeah, I would break the people up into groups that you're training and say, okay, here you have a little breakout for 5 minutes. Half of the groups are going to be using AI for help, and the other half aren't. And then make them duel off basically to show the results. And I will guarantee you that the teams that had the AI help are going to do a lot better.
Great suggestion, RJ. Yeah, go ahead, Donovan, then JC.
Hey, Paul, I was going to say, thanks for being so articulate. That was really nice. I like the practical examples of the prompting. And yeah, it's amazing how these things help us think in a way we haven't thought before. And kind of, they're really like tacking in a brain module, like an empathy brain module so that we can think like other people think. Right.
Yeah, no, Donovan, and I think one thing that I mean, we've been living, breathing this now for almost a year now,
Yeah.
and John and our team, I don't know if John Fielker's on, and he's a really good at saying what do the robots think. So even when we're running our business or talking about stuff, we revert back to old habits, and so, for instance, John and I were this weekend reviewing a really important legal document, and we're like reporting, and like an hour through it, we're like slowly going through it, and we're like, how come we didn't ask the robots? Take this 45-page, upload it to ChatGPT, and they gave us a fantastic summary. So it's change management. It's hard. It needs to be modeled. And I think the other thing is you've got to get the cultural norm moved over, and not 2% of your employee base who use this as a tips and tricks tool.
And that imagination, I think, being able to imagine what it can do, that's something that a lot of people just don't have because they don't have the knowledge of the tools, right?
Right. No idea. Thank you, Donovan.
Thanks.
Go ahead, JC. Then we'll go to Mike.
Yeah, no, thanks, Paul. I think that was great. I was actually surprised, and maybe my question is along the lines as RJ. How many of the folks in your training classes already know, ChatGPT 4 and versus people are totally new to it? Because we've been using it for a year, and everything that you showed is, the stuff that we do on a daily basis here, I guess, among this group. But what's the distribution when you get into a class of people that have used that versus never used it, and how do they react to the training?
So it's a great question. So we have one company we've done 8 classes for. Each class is 60 to 80 people. We do a survey up front on what they want to learn. At the beginning of the thing, we ask them 3 questions. How much did you use it last week? And it's almost always a third have never used it at all. Almost a third 1 to 2 hours, and a third more than 2 hours. And we ask them what's the biggest what's preventing them from using them more? Is it security? I don't know how. And it breaks down by third security, third I don't know how, and third it doesn't really apply for my work there space. Then we ask them, where do they go for help? Do you go to your help desk, or do you ask a neighbor? And 99% go to the internet. But this whole group here, you guys are in the 0.001% of the world in understanding this. It is so early. Oh my goodness. And I think it's really important for the leaders who are also early to understand this, because if they don't understand the basics, they're not going to model that. And they all environment. And we've done a lot of cases where we have to do one-on-ones with some of the executives, or we just do I mean, nobody wants to be embarrassed. And that's why, I think John's always particularly articulate on, he's never seen something where people have such a high opinion and knowledge about it with such little, or such a high opinion on it with such little knowledge about it. There's something emotional about this topic where it's embarrassing, or people don't want to say they don't know. So anyway, a headline is, I think that the vast majority aren't doing it. And even when they say it, I don't believe them. And even if they have used it, it's for some trivial thing like doing stories for their grandkids or their kids or something.
Right.
Thanks, JC. Go ahead, Mike. Then we'll go to open mic here in 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, thank you, first of all, Paul, for bringing sales. I really appreciate it. Being in sales, I like that you did it, and you did a great job, of understanding sales and things that we need. So thank you very much. One of the other things that wasn't mentioned was personalizing things towards the person that you're talking to. So you can go into LinkedIn, get their background, and get a sort of a personalized script referring to jobs that they've had in the past and things that they've done in the past. Another thing that surprises me is when I started in this class, one of the things that we do is we talk to our vendor and we ask them questions on complex job descriptions that they put out. And I put in ChatGPT, and ChatGPT asks me gives me the questions. And I said, boy, very soon everyone's going to be asking good questions. Nobody's asking questions except for me. And the vendors, said, Mike, I appreciate how prepared you come every week to this class for these questions. And this ChatGPT is surprised that no one else is plugged into it yet. I thought, within a week or two, everybody was going to be coming up with these same, level of questions that I'm asking, and they're not. It's really very interesting.
Yeah, it's great. I think awareness is 100%. Everyone knows about these tools. I think it's that first half inch, that first mile,
Yeah.
seeing someone that takes them over to the swimming pool, and it's a baby pool, or showing them how to cut an onion. I mean, whatever analogy you want to use, but we continue to push more actually showing people on keyboard doing stuff and having them do stuff and come back and show it, because that we get such good feedback in the post-class response by that here. But thanks, Mike. Go ahead, Val, and then we'll go to Michael.
I just wanted to add what Mike was saying. There's a little hack that I mentioned before where you go into LinkedIn and you actually download the person's profile as a PDF, and then you paste it into ChatGPT, and maybe you add it to those prompts that you shared, and that's a game changer right there, because you're just hitting chords that, you know, only if you knew the person would hit those type of chords. So I just wanted to share that.
That's great, Val. Thank you. Go ahead. We'll go. Oh, we lose Michael. Michael Blake, we'll go back to you, and then Lucinda.
Okay, I just had something. I had a class last week that was a certification class at MIT, but we had a class project, and our team put together a presentation. Part of it was we were discussing a roadmap for developing an app, and we had a picture of a phone with a hand holding it with our logo on it. Everybody was real pleased with the logo, but we never noticed that the hand had 6 fingers on it. So I will warn everybody to kind of look through all of their output.
They're still working on fingers and ears. I see a lot.
Oh, no. The class loved it. They were able to point something out because the rest of the presentation went well.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Mike. Go ahead, Lucinda.
So 2 things. Number one, just for Michael, about the making the cartoons and stuff. I had to make a cartoon where I literally wrote, I wanted the caption to say, find the 10 most relevant resumes. And it wrote, find the 10 MOS relevant resumes. So yeah, and it was like, okay, so random, but whatever. Here we go, probabilistic. But then the other thing I wanted to say in terms of getting people to try things is that, like, if they have a specific problem, I was talking to a friend of mine. She's like, oh, I got to write a clause in my rental agreement for my property about this special thing for these clients, blah, blah, blah. I said, you know what, just go ahead, look it up, and just, have it generated, and, no guarantees on any of the things. But she said she did it. She's like, I'm going to use this all the time when I have to rewrite certain parts of my contract because of specific situations for how she's renting out her place. So yeah, I just want, just in terms of, like, once you make it solving their problem, then it's really, good. Another one that's common actually is family trip itineraries. That's actually a fairly common problem that people have. If they're the person who's planning the trip, and you're like, no, okay, I want to go to Austria and Germany, but I don't want to go this far, and I want to do these things and visit these places. And then you could just say, I got 10 days between this date and that date, and tell me what to do, and tell me the proper order, tell me what I'm doing each day and where I'm staying each night. And then that, people have to plan trips all the time. I think it's not a business way to use it, but it is a way to solve a problem.
It's really great. Lucinda, 2 quick things. We had one very skeptic who was really coming at me hard in a meeting. And I said, okay, I said, what's your biggest problem right now in life? What's your biggest problem? And she said, you want to be truthful? I said, please. She goes, my biggest problem is that I have to go see my mother-in-law this weekend, and I don't want to go. And I don't know how to write that text message. So we had a great time asking ChatGPT how to reply to text message in a polite way. And she became a believer after that. So it was really, I think it's really important to find out where they are and help them learn the tool for their problem.
Yeah.
But let's go to let's jump to Alex. Alex, first time. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've actually been here a couple times. I just wanted to talk about, you mentioned perplexity earlier. It's definitely going to be a very big competitor for Google between that and the Arc browser, which is a new browser that they did a new demonstration that was pretty much anti kind of like tech ad. And it really is going to redefine how we interact with the internet, because a lot of the time you're not seeing ads when it's done that way. So
Alex, share more what Arc is. I don't know if a lot of people know what the Arc browser is. It just came out. What is it?
yeah,
And why
so
transformative?
yeah, sure. So the Arc browser is a new browser that is basically does a lot of the actual browsing portion already for you. And recently, or this past week, they actually, or last week, they had a demonstration video that went pretty viral in the tech industry. And it was just basically the CEO explaining this to regular people, how you would do as a consultant. And he just really explained to them, you could do this. You can do this without dealing with the ads, not dealing with poor performance or just SEO fluff. And it was really amazed me. And I think that a lot of people are going to be on more of that bandwagon as we grow throughout the next 2 years. And it's going to be interesting to see how Google shifts their strategy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, no
We've
problem.
got a few minutes for open mic. Who wants to share more comments or observations or exciting things they've learned or frustrations? Go ahead, Alden. Alden, go ahead.
Yeah, so talking about the sales, like one interesting thing is also when you have an email address, you can actually use the API and plug it into ChatGPT to customize your messages for that email address. So in a lot of lead gen capture, if somebody like say Paul at jaiinsights.com registers for your webinar or something, and you need to email them, then you can use the domain name and then customize your messages based on the contents of that domain name. So this was my weekend project. I'm really excited to try this out.
Alden, explain more. Share what that prompt would look like. So if you were going to send an email to me based on my, how would you use my email to send me a customized email based on our website?
So the first thing to do is, you take the email, the domain part of the email, and you just download the homepage, right? Then you take the content of the homepage and put it in a prompt in ChatGPT, which says, I would like to send an email based on the contents of this homepage. Now, act like an expert sales agent and give me 5 customized sentences and you can insert whatever you're selling, right? So you can say, give me 5 customized sentences for selling toys or whatever it is you're selling. And so ChatGPT will create a value proposition based on that factor. So you can create a factor based on the person industry, their geography, like everything that you were mentioning about doing manually can be done programmatically. And the benefit of this is now you can like scale it to 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 emails that you want.
Really stunning. So thank you all. That's a great way to end discussion today. So thanks everyone for participating, and let's keep learning and let's keep growing the group. We don't market this at all. We need to do a better job on that, but keep getting the word out. We get a lot of you guys keep coming back, and we want to keep improving it. I do want to acknowledge Rosemary Briscoe, who's not on here. She helped us get a new sign and logo for Meetup, and people here last week, we had 3 or 4 different versions. We're giving feedback on it. So Rosemary, thanks for that. So thanks everyone. Have a good day or good evening, depending on where you are in the world.
Thanks, Paul.
Great class. Thank you.